Most people live inside illusions. They call them truths, morals, beliefs. But when you begin to see through these illusions, you become dangerous. The question we explore today is, there is a certain cruelty in vision, a quiet punishment that comes not from the outside world, but from the mind that sees too much. When a man begins to see the truth beneath appearances, when he perceives the machinery behind human nature, he is no longer like other men. He becomes separated, not by distance, but by understanding. And that separation is what I call the loneliness of vision. Most people do not want to see the world as it is. They want comfort, not clarity. They want stories that protect them from the sharp edges of truth. They worship illusions because illusions make life bearable. They love their beliefs because their beliefs love them back. But the man who sees too deeply destroys those illusions, first in himself, and then, unintentionally, in others. He can no longer play the same games, speak the same lies, or live with the same blind enthusiasm. He begins to feel like a stranger among his own kind. To see the truth about power, loyalty, love, and morality is to see the mask slip off humanity's face. You notice how people say one thing and mean another. You see how power hides behind virtue and how weakness hides behind morality. You recognize that the world is not driven by goodness, but by necessity. And once you understand that, you cannot return to innocence. The more you know, the more alone you become. When you are the only one who sees the storm coming, you cannot celebrate under a clear sky. You carry the weight of knowing while everyone else dances in ignorance. They call you paranoid, cynical, even mad, but you are simply awake in a world that prefers to sleep. This is the price of vision, not the reward of seeing more, but the burden of carrying what you cannot share. The philosopher, the strategist, the ruler, they all know this pain. When you see further than others, you must walk alone. For if you try to warn the blind, they will accuse you of cruelty. If you tell them that their light is false, they will call you an enemy of hope. History is filled with men who saw too clearly and were punished for it. Those who predicted the fall of empires were exiled. Those who revealed the corruption of the church were burned. Those who challenged the illusions of society were silenced, not because they were wrong, but because their vision was unbearable to those still asleep. It is not the vision itself that isolates you, it is the reaction it provokes. People do not hate the truth. They hate the one who reveals it. They hate the man who shows them their chains. They will destroy him to protect their illusion of freedom. And so, the wise man learns to remain quiet. He carries his insight like a secret weapon, using it only when the moment serves him. In every court, in every palace, in every gathering of power, there are those who see what others do not. They know the true motives behind the smiles, the greed behind the generosity, the ambition behind the loyalty. But they do not speak it. They let others play their roles, and they play along, for to reveal the truth too soon is to sign your own death sentence. The visionary must learn the art of concealment. To see does not mean to show. To understand does not mean to explain. For the moment you expose your depth, you invite fear. People are not comfortable around those who see too much. They sense it, that sharpness of perception, that quiet awareness, and they grow uneasy. They will either worship you or conspire against you, but they will never treat you as one of them again. And this, my friend, is the hidden tragedy of intelligence. To rise in vision is to fall in companionship. To understand men too well is to lose the ability to believe in them. You see through every disguise, every noble justification, every convenient lie, and yet you must still live among them. You must smile, pretend, nod, and play along, knowing that your understanding is both your armor and your prison. The man who sees what others don't must build a world within himself, for the outer one no longer satisfies him. His conversations become performances, his friendships fragile illusions of normalcy. He begins to crave silence because only in silence does he find honesty. The crowd cheers for kings, priests, and heroes, but it never cheers for the observer. The observer is too unsettling. He knows too much and he says too little. There is, however, a kind of power in this isolation. For when you are no longer bound by the illusions of others, you begin to see the chessboard clearly. You understand the moves that must be made, the sacrifices that must be endured. You see opportunity where others see chaos. You recognize manipulation where others see fate. This clarity becomes your weapon, but it is a weapon that cannot be shared. The danger, therefore, is not only that others will reject you, but that you will start to reject them. You will find yourself detached, calculating, cold because warmth requires illusion, and illusion has already died within you. You begin to think like a strategist rather than a believer, like an observer rather than a participant. You become a student of power, a collector of motives, a silent witness to the theater of human nature. And as you watch, you realize that seeing too much does not free you, it confines you to a higher awareness, a place from which you can never descend. You cannot unsee manipulation, cannot unknow deceit, cannot pretend to believe in what you know is false. You become both enlightened and cursed, both powerful and alone. That is the true meaning of vision as isolation. It is not the world that abandons you, it is you who outgrows the world. You walk through it as one unseen, one misunderstood, one who bears the burden of seeing what others refuse to see. Power, my friend, does not fear strength. It does not even fear rebellion. What power truly fears is perception. The moment you begin to see how things really work, you become a threat to every system built on illusion. The moment your eyes pierce the veil, you are no longer a subject, you are an observer. And the observer is dangerous. For once you see, you cannot be deceived, and those who rule by deception can no longer control you. Throughout history, the rulers, the priests, the politicians all have built their power not on truth, but on belief. Belief is their strongest fortress. The people must believe in their goodness, their purpose, their necessity. But when a single man steps forward and says, "I see the lie," the entire structure trembles. That is why truth tellers are not rewarded, they are removed. The one who sees too clearly threatens the balance that keeps the many asleep. When you perceive the hidden motives of those in command, when you understand the invisible chains that hold society together, you are no longer under their spell. You begin to move differently. You speak differently. You question what others accept, and that subtle shift, that quiet independence, makes the powerful nervous. They sense your awareness. They see that you are not fooled, and in their eyes, you become a danger. Not because you act against them, but because you could. Those who benefit from deception always protect it. The courtier who flatters the prince despises the man who can see through his charm. The ruler who controls the crowd through promises despises the thinker who questions his words. The priest who preaches morality despises the philosopher who exposes his hypocrisy. The system, my friend, is not built to reward clarity, it is built to punish it. And yet, perception itself is not evil. It is power. The danger lies in what others believe you can do with it. If they think you see too much, they will begin to imagine what you might say, what you might reveal, what influence you might gain over others. Suspicion becomes your shadow. The eyes of the court, the whispers of the palace, the gossip of the crowd all turn toward you. You become a figure of curiosity and fear. They will call you manipulative, cunning, untrustworthy. But these are the words used by the blind against the sighted. In the game of power, perception is more powerful than the sword. To perceive is to hold knowledge, and knowledge rearranges the balance of control. Once a ruler knows that you understand his methods, he can no longer rule you in the same way. Once an enemy realizes that you see through his disguise, he loses his weapon of surprise. Perception dismantles manipulation. It cuts through illusion. And that is why it is both the greatest strength and the greatest danger. There is a reason, I say, that the wisest men in history have hidden their wisdom. The alchemist cloaked his science in symbols. The philosopher buried truth beneath riddles. The strategist disguised intelligence as loyalty. They knew the rule: to be aware is to be hunted, for awareness shifts the balance of power even when silent. The moment others realize you understand them better than they understand themselves, their trust evaporates. They will not see your insight as enlightenment, they will see it as control. The same clarity that gives you power also brands you as a manipulator, even when you act with restraint. That is the paradox of perception. The more you see, the more others will fear what you might do with that sight. You must understand, then, that perception threatens not only the rulers above you, but the equals beside you. In every alliance, every friendship, every circle of power, there are those who thrive on ignorance. They prefer comfort over confrontation, appearances over truth, and when your mind cuts through their facades, they feel exposed. Their masks fall, and in that exposure, they will turn on you to preserve themselves. They will whisper, conspire, discredit, anything to blind others before you open their eyes. Perception, therefore, must be handled like a blade kept sharp, but hidden. A sword visible in your hand invites caution and resistance. A sword concealed under your cloak commands quiet respect. The same is true of vision. Do not announce what you see. Use it when the moment is right. Speak truth only when it can shape the outcome, not when it only satisfies your pride. For the wise man knows, the world does not fear the fool who guesses, it fears the mind that knows. Consider how empires maintain order. They thrive not on strength, but on blindness. The people must not see how decisions are made, how wealth is distributed, how truth is shaped into obedience. The few who understand the machinery beneath are tolerated only when they remain silent. Once they speak, they threaten the entire illusion that keeps the many content. And so, perception becomes rebellion not through violence, but through awareness itself. The danger of seeing what others don't is that your sight breaks the spell that holds them. It reminds them that the world they trust is fragile, that the structures they worship are built on smoke. And when people are faced with such discomfort, they do not awaken, they attack. They prefer to destroy the messenger than confront the message. That is why the prophet becomes an exile, the philosopher becomes a prisoner, and the thinker becomes an enemy of the state. Not because they are wrong, but because they are dangerous to those who rely on the blindness of others. So when you begin to see, when your eyes open to the truth behind the game, remember that what you possess is not simply knowledge, but power. And power, when seen by those who do not have it, breeds fear. You become the one who cannot be fooled, and in a world ruled by deception, that makes you the greatest threat of all. There is a truth that few ever learn: it is not enough to see clearly. One must also learn when to hide that clarity. The world does not reward honesty of perception. It rewards the wisdom to disguise it. The man who reveals all that he knows too soon invites his own destruction. Vision without strategy is a blade without a hilt sharp, but dangerous to the one who wields it. Every wise ruler, every cunning thinker, every survivor of power games has mastered the art of concealment. It is not deceit for its own sake, but self-preservation. The world is built upon fragile egos, hungry ambitions, and delicate illusions. To expose them openly is to set yourself against the entire structure that sustains them. So, concealment becomes not cowardice, but intelligence. The fox hides not because he is afraid, but because he knows when to strike. A man who possesses great insight must wear a mask of simplicity. He must allow others to believe he is ordinary, harmless, predictable. The greater his understanding, the quieter his words must become. He observes without declaring, plans without boasting, and acts only when the outcome is already secure. This is the foundation of survival in a world that punishes those who reveal their depth too quickly. When you show your intelligence too soon, you provoke envy. When you reveal your plans too early, you invite sabotage. And when you expose your perception too openly, you awaken fear. The weak admire the wise only until they realize the wise can see through them. Then admiration turns to resentment. They begin to whisper that you are manipulative, dangerous, not to be trusted. This is why the greatest minds throughout history cloaked their genius in humility. They allowed the world to think them cautious, uncertain, or even foolish until the moment came to act. The strategy of concealment begins with understanding human vanity. Most men desire not truth, but flattery. They wish to be seen as intelligent, moral, capable. If you expose their ignorance, they will not thank you, they will despise you. So, let them believe they are wise. Let them speak their illusions, and nod as though you agree. In doing so, you gain what is far more valuable than their approval, their trust. And once trust is given, their guard falls. Then, and only then, can your hidden vision shape the course of events. The wise man hides his motives behind a curtain of calm. He never allows his emotions to reveal his intentions. His silence becomes a weapon, his patience a shield. When others rush to prove their cleverness, he listens. When they speak to impress, he studies. And while they reveal themselves in words, he remains a mystery. In the court of power, the quiet observer always holds more control than the loud speaker. For silence cannot be read, and unreadable men are feared. To conceal your understanding is also to control the timing of revelation. A truth spoken at the wrong moment is a weapon wasted. But a truth revealed when the world is ready can alter destiny itself. Timing, not honesty, determines the impact of wisdom. The fool blurts out his thoughts like coins from a broken purse. The wise man releases his words like a merchant trading gold sparingly, strategically, and only when it serves his interest. Do not confuse concealment with deception. Deception seeks to mislead others entirely. Concealment, on the other hand, simply guards what must not yet be exposed. It is the discipline of restraint, the refusal to waste truth on unready ears. Even the most powerful ideas die when spoken to those who cannot comprehend them. The world must be prepared to receive what you know, and until it is, your knowledge must live in silence. Remember this: the more valuable your insight, the more dangerous it becomes to display it carelessly. When your perception threatens another's illusion, they will call you a liar. When your knowledge threatens their authority, they will call you a traitor. And when your strategy threatens their comfort, they will call you evil. But in truth, their hatred is only fear of the unseen power that lives behind your silence. The masters of power throughout history have understood this balance. Caesar spoke like a man of the people while planning like a god. Napoleon smiled in the company of fools while calculating their use. Even I, Machiavelli, learned that to speak the whole truth to the wrong prince was to invite exile. A lesson written in pain but carved in wisdom. Never forget truth must serve power, not precede it. Concealment gives you the freedom to move without interference. The man whose mind is visible to all becomes predictable. The man who hides his thoughts becomes untouchable. The moment your enemies cannot read your intentions, they begin to fear your silence more than your actions. Confusion becomes your armor. Doubt becomes your ally. In their uncertainty, they reveal themselves while you remain unseen. There is also beauty in being underestimated. The wolf disguised as a lamb lives longer than the lion who roars too loud. Let them think you naive. Let them believe you harmless. In their arrogance, they will lower their guard, and in that moment, your strategy will unfold without resistance. The art of power is not in confrontation, but in manipulation, not in shouting your vision, but in guiding others quietly toward it. In this world, every man must wear a mask. The difference between the wise and the foolish is that the wise choose theirs with purpose. Concealment is the mask of the intelligent. a cloak woven from patience and calculation. Behind it, the mind observes, plans, and prepares. And when the time comes to act, it is not the loudest voice that wins, it is the quietest one that has been listening all along. To see what others do not, and yet to survive among them, that is the greatest art of all. It is not enough to possess vision or even to conceal it. One must learn the delicate balance between revelation and restraint. Power is not gained by those who always hide, nor by those who always speak. It is gained by those who know when to do each, those who understand that timing is the true heartbeat of power. The world does not reward the man who sees everything. It rewards the man who uses what he sees at the perfect moment. This is the Machiavellian balance, the discipline to rule both truth and illusion, and to make each serve the purpose of power. There is a danger in both extremes. The man who hides too deeply becomes invisible. He influences nothing. The man who reveals too quickly becomes vulnerable. He loses control. The wise must live in the space between the twilight where half truths and strategy dance together. You must know when to pretend ignorance, when to display brilliance, when to remain silent, and when to speak a word that changes everything. That balance is what separates the ruler from the dreamer, the strategist from the fool. Power thrives not in absolute truth, but in perception. If people believe you are wise, you are wise. If they believe you are kind, you are kind. The truth behind these perceptions is secondary. What matters is what they choose to see. Therefore, the wise man learns to control not just actions, but appearances. He shapes the image of himself as carefully as a sculptor shapes stone, revealing only what strengthens his position. This does not make him dishonest. It makes him effective. For in the theater of politics, appearance is the language of power. To live by the Machiavellian balance, one must see power as a game of mirrors. Every reflection has a purpose. You show humility to disarm arrogance. You show ignorance to study the wise. You show strength to silence challengers. And yet, you remain untouched by any of these roles, for they are only tools. The fool becomes the mask. The wise man wears it only when needed. The secret lies not in what you show, but in remembering that you can remove the mask at will. The man who sees what others don't must resist the temptation to prove it. The desire to be recognized for one's intelligence is the weakness that destroys many thinkers. They reveal too much too soon, hoping to be admired, but admiration is fleeting and envy is eternal. The moment others see your superiority, they begin to conspire. Thus, the balance is not only strategic, it is psychological. You must master yourself before you can master others. You must silence the ego that wants to be seen and awaken the intellect that waits for the right moment. Consider the ruler who understands the minds of his subjects. He sees their fears, their hopes, their desires. If he speaks too harshly, they rebel. If he flatters too openly, they grow suspicious. But if he moves between sternness and mercy, between strength and patience, he commands both fear and loyalty. That is balance, not weakness disguised as virtue, but control disguised as fairness. He appears just while remaining ruthless. He seems merciful while ensuring obedience. The balance between appearance and reality is what allows him to rule without resistance. This same law applies to every human interaction. When you see the truth of a person, do not always speak it. Sometimes the greatest show of power is restraint. Let others reveal themselves through their actions. Let them speak their ambitions aloud while you listen in silence. The more they talk, the more they expose. The less you speak, the more mysterious you become. People fear what they cannot predict. And when they fear you, they begin to respect you. That respect born of uncertainty is one of the purest forms of control. The Machiavellian balance also demands adaptability. What works in one environment will fail in another. Among equals, humility is strength. Among the ambitious, confidence is survival. A wise man shifts his tone as easily as a serpent changes its skin. He is never rigid, never entirely good nor entirely cruel. He acts according to necessity, not morality. He understands that morality is a costume society wears to disguise its power struggles. The wise play by those rules only when it suits them and discard them when it doesn't. There will be moments when your silence must end, when the balance tips and the time for revelation arrives. Then your words must strike like lightning, sudden, sharp, and decisive. One well-timed truth can destroy 1,000 lies. One act of clarity can reorder an entire kingdom. But even then, do not mistake action for expression. Speak only to create movement, never to satisfy emotion. Every revelation must have a purpose. Every word must serve power. Balance also means knowing when to appear loyal and when to stand apart. Loyalty is a useful currency, but only when it buys influence. Blind loyalty, however, is suicide. The wise man remains close enough to power to benefit, yet distant enough to escape its fall. He supports the ruler, but never depends on him. He builds alliances, but never trusts them fully. He praises others publicly, while preparing privately for their betrayal. This is not cruelty, it is nature. Even the most beautiful garden hides its thorns. To live by this philosophy is to walk a narrow line between light and shadow. You will act humble among the arrogant and intelligent among the ignorant. You will nod while others lie and smile while others scheme. But within you there must be stillness and inner clarity that never breaks. For the balance is not about deceit. It is about control. The control to decide who deserves your truth, when they shall see it, and how much of it they can handle. The Machiavellian balance is the final stage of wisdom. It is when you no longer need to prove your knowledge or flaunt your power. You move through the world unseen yet unstoppable, speaking only when the silence has served its purpose. You have learned that mastery does not lie in choosing between truth and illusion, but in making both obey your will. So now you understand the price of sight, the cost of seeing what others refuse to see. Vision is power, yes, but power is never gentle. It isolates, it threatens, it forces you into the art of silence. Those who see beyond the illusions of men must walk with caution, for their eyes are both a gift and a curse. The world is built upon deception, kingdoms of belief, towers of vanity, walls of ignorance. To pierce those walls is to stand alone. The crowd will not thank you for your clarity. They will despise you for it. They will cling to their illusions, for illusions are the comfort of the weak. But you, the one who sees, you must learn to survive your own awareness. You must wear masks, play roles, and speak carefully in a theater ruled by blind actors. Never forget, the danger lies not in your vision, but in how and when you reveal it. Wisdom is knowing that truth, in the wrong moment, becomes destruction. Concealment is not coward, it is strategy. The wise do not fight illusions, they navigate them. They do not destroy the game, they master it. In the end, the man who sees what others don't must become both fox and lion, clever enough to move unseen, strong enough to strike when the time demands it. He must live between appearance and reality, between silence and revelation. That is where true power is born, in the balance between what you know and what you allow the world to see. And as you walk through this world of shadows, remember, sight alone will not save you. It will only set you apart. What will save you is control, control of what you see, control of what you reveal, and control of the moment when your truth finally becomes your weapon.